Ash drifted down like radioactive snow over the shattered remnants of what used to be Chicago. The skyline was a jagged row of broken teeth, smoldering in the gray dawn. Imperial banners flapped over crumbling buildings, alien symbols glowing, faintly, claiming dominion in a language no human ever bothered to learn. At the heart of it all stood Commander Zarnax, six-eyed and regal in his obsidian battle robes, addressing the Galactic press from the top of a conquered courthouse. The Terran threat has been neutralized. Let it be known, the age of human defiance is over. Their resistance has ended. Cheers erupted from his entourage. Insectoid officers, psychic strategists, and a hovering squad of data recorders. Across the galaxy, millions tuned in. The Empire's news network, ENET, plastered the moment with triumphant headlines. Earth subdued. Human uprising ends. Galactic peace secured. Except it hadn't. Half a world away, buried under a collapsed missile silo in what used to be Kansas, a heavy metal door screeched open, and a single figure stepped into the ruins. His armor was scuffed, scorched, and plastered with faded decals. One, a crudely drawn skull. Another, the words, "Property of the Reaper Unit." Smoke curled off his shoulder plates as he surveyed the wasteland through a cracked visor. Major Jake Callahan, callsign Reaper, squinted at the blackened horizon. His left eye was still twitching from cryo-reawakening. He spat dust and muttered, "They always forget rule number 1. He reached down, activated the power core in his battered suit, and winced as it buzzed to life with a series of electronic hiccups and an aggressive startup sound that seemed pulled straight from a Sega Genesis cartridge. He slapped the chest plate. The suit calmed. Jake glanced skyward. Imperial cruisers floated like sharks above the clouds, scanning for heat signatures, unaware that the deadliest thing on the planet had just rebooted. 10 minutes later, Jake was moving through the wreckage of a bombed-out suburb, rifle slung, eyes sharp. His armor, though outdated by 3 generations, ran on a hybrid core rigged with alien plasma tech and duct tape. His HUD flickered, then stabilized, showing a red blip. He moved toward it without hesitation. Behind a crushed yellow school bus, half buried in concrete and twisted playground equipment, the signal pulsed louder. He dug with his hands until he uncovered a small emergency pod. He forced the hatch and dragged out a dazed young woman in a blood-stained lab coat. Her name tag read Dr. L. Quantum, MIT Exotech Division. She blinked up at him. "Who the hell are you?" He offered a hand. "The last mistake they made." She hesitated, then took it. "Call me Lisa." "Lisa," Jake said, dragging her to her feet. "Congratulations. You just got drafted." They moved quickly, heading east. Reaper explained little. Lisa peppered him with questions, most of which he ignored. She noticed his shoulder pauldron was held together by a soldered Zippo lighter. His gauntlet had "Born to Rage" carved into it. The man looked like a walking 80s action movie filtered through a scrapyard. They reached the husk of a gas station and took shelter. Jake pulled a cracked screen from his thigh pouch and started patching into what was left of Earth's satellites. "I thought they wiped everything," Lisa said. "They wiped everything they understood," Jake muttered, fingers flying over alien glyphs and human code alike. "But humans bury things deep. You ever try deleting a 4chan archive?" "God help us." Jake's eyes lit up as he tapped into an encrypted frequency. Somewhere in the silence, he'd found a heartbeat. A series of code pings, automated but looping. A call to any remaining Reapers. The signal repeated every 60 minutes. Most likely on solar power. Most likely from someone stubborn. Lisa leaned over his shoulder. "You're not the only one left." Jake nodded slowly. "Let's go find who still remembers the rules." 200 miles away, aboard the Empire's Mobile Orbital Command Ship, Zarnax reviewed battlefield reports while eating a gelatinous cube he insisted was a delicacy of conquest. His assistant, A small drone with an artificial personality patch named Click hovered nearby, nervously blinking. "Commander," Click said, voice metallic and too cheerful. "There has been a minor anomaly in Sector 12. Power fluctuations and unauthorized movements." Zarnax didn't look up. "A roach, a rat. Earth's remains twitching before expiration. There is an organic entity, bipedal, armed, destroyed a recon drone with, let me confirm, yes, Commander. It appears to have used a crowbar." Zarnax paused. "What is a crowbar?" Click displayed an image. Zarnax stared, nonplussed. "Primitive, yet effective, Commander." Zarnax dismissed him with a wave. "Activate an extermination unit. Make it elegant. I do not like lingering noise on a conquered world." Jake and Lisa took a shortcut through the ruins of an abandoned drive-in theater. The lot was filled with rusted-out sedans, old popcorn machines, and half a dozen crushed Imperial Scout mechs. Jake didn't comment. Lisa stared. "You did all this?" "Don't know. Could have been me. Could have been Frank." "Who's Frank?" "Other guy in my unit. Had a real anger problem. Kept a flamethrower in his trunk. Told command it was a camping tool." Lisa shook her head, half laughing, half horrified. "You people are insane." Jake gave her a side glance. "You're human too, Doc. You'll get there." They found shelter in an underground bunker beneath a shattered police station. Jake activated the emergency terminal and sent out a coded pulse. He added his signature to the Reaper frequency. Then they waited. Hours passed. Lisa slept. Jake sat motionless, staring at the flickering monitor. His mind wandered back to the day the Reaper unit fell, outnumbered, betrayed, and left for dead, after the Empire's orbital cannon vaporized half the Rockies. Only he made it out. Or so he thought. The monitor pinged. Jake straightened. A response. One word. "Alive." He exhaled slowly. A second signal followed. "Coordinates." Lisa stirred. "That a good beep or a bad beep?" Jake cracked a rare grin. "That beep means it's not just me anymore." Far above, Zarnax's extermination unit began its descent. A sleek, six-legged death engine armed with psychic dampeners, plasma arrays, and a prideful arrogance only possible in an AI trained on Imperial war protocols. Its name was Harmony 9, and it had never failed a purge. Jake saw the trail of its descent flare across the sky. He stood, armored up, locked and loaded. Lisa handed him an extra charge pack. "I don't suppose we run." "No," Jake said. "It's rule number 1. She tilted her head. "Which is?" He glanced back, eyes lit with something feral. "Never assume a human's done fighting." He stepped out into the cold morning light. The bunker door slammed shut behind him. As Harmony 9 landed in a burst of electromagnetic thunder, Jake was already sprinting forward, weapon humming, dust kicking up around his boots. The Reaper had returned, and this time he was keeping score. Harmony 9's descent ignited the sky like a false dawn, a superheated trail punching through the cloud layer. Somewhere behind it, a fleet of orbital drones buzzed into formation, triangulating Jake Callahan's last known position. The Reaper, still moving with the focus of a predator long out of hibernation, barely spared them a glance. His attention was fixed on the target ahead, a churning impact crater glowing at the edges, steam rising from broken asphalt and atomized trees. He ducked behind a collapsed concrete overpass as Harmony 9 rose from the crater's center, elegant as a scythe. The death machine's 6 legs folded outward like a blooming flower of annihilation. Its obsidian armor shimmered with phased shielding, and its head unit rotated slowly, scanning the charred landscape. Jake studied the timing of its pulse sweep. 6 seconds between full rotations. He could work with that. From her position inside, the wrecked command car behind the overpass, Lisa watched through cracked binoculars. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from disbelief. There was something deeply offensive about how calm Jake was as he prepped a thermite charge. She'd read about the Reaper unit. She'd seen what was left of them on old footage. But nothing prepared her for the kind of reckless composure Jake wore like a second skin. "You can't be serious," she said, voice low. "That thing looks like it eats black holes for breakfast." Jake jammed the charge into the core of a disabled plasma rifle and duct-taped the entire bundle to a steel rebar. "Everyone needs a hobby. Your hobby is suicide? Only if I mess up the punchline." Lisa glanced skyward. "Just so I'm clear, the plan is to run at the galaxy's most advanced murder bot with a homemade bomb spear?" Jake adjusted his aim. "It's not just a bomb. It's a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "Of why they hate us." He hurled, the makeshift spear angling high. It spun through the air, end over end, trailing sparks like a comet. Harmony 9's head jerked up. The rebar slammed into its shield with a ripple of energy, detonating in a sun-bright flash. The explosion staggered the machine but failed to breach the core shell. Still, it made Harmony 9 take a step back. A Reaper was not supposed to exist anymore, let alone attack with improvised 20th century warfare. Jake didn't stop moving. He launched into a sprint, bounding across scorched terrain, dodging plasma bursts that boiled the earth in his wake. Harmony 9 fired a cutting beam, but Jake rolled beneath it, snapped upright, and unloaded a barrage of high-impact rounds into one of the machine's leg joints. The bullets pinged off armor, but a few found seams. Sparks flew. Lisa watched, transfixed, as the Empire's executioner stumbled. It didn't make sense. Harmony 9 was a precision kill agent, powered by quantum cognition and blessed with 12,000 years of Imperial war doctrine. Jake Callahan, meanwhile, was a man whose armor was patched with a melted Metallica badge and who'd just thrown a bomb taped to rebar. Jake dove, skidded behind a ruined ambulance, and triggered a mine he'd buried moments before. The blast took out Harmony's left rear leg. The machine buckled but didn't fall. Instead, its core light changed color, from cool blue to molten crimson. The air warped with heat. Harmony's shielding adjusted to retaliate. Jake grunted. "About damn time." Inside the command car, Lisa worked fast. She'd scavenged the drone remains Jake dragged in earlier and cracked their frequency controls. As Harmony 9's system shifted to advanced retaliation mode, Lisa sent out a false priority override, a request for a localized atmospheric scan from Harmony's own support fleet. 3 drones turned and descended, obediently locking into scan. Formation. Lisa grinned. "Okay, you smug bucket of bolts, let's see how you like a data storm." She pinged their feedback loops into each other, causing the drones to overload. Their harmonics collided mid-air. Harmony 9's advanced optics flickered. For a crucial half-second, it went blind. Jake surged forward and slid under the machine, pulling free a blade made from fused starship hull and broken alien alloy. It sparked with every step. He jammed it into the damaged joint he'd spotted earlier, bracing his foot against the leg for leverage. Metal screamed. Fluid hissed. The machine reacted violently, kicking outward, flinging Jake across the field, like a ragdoll. He crashed into a rusted bus and didn't move. Lisa's breath caught. Harmony turned its head toward her position, target now reassigned. It charged forward, plasma lances heating. She ducked, clutched her stolen datapad, and scrambled toward Jake, vaulting rubble, heart pounding. Jake groaned as she reached him. Blood trickled from a crack in his helmet, but he was conscious. "Tell me it's dead." "Not yet. And it knows I helped." He struggled upright, using her shoulder as leverage. "That's the trick with these guys. They think if you get hurt, you'll stop fighting." Lisa handed him a pulse pack. "Are we about to prove them wrong?" Jake jabbed the pack into his side, shuddered as energy surged through his veins. "We're about to teach it American overkill." Harmony 9 loomed into view. Jake leveled his last charge weapon and fired, intentionally missing, targeting a loose power core buried in the rubble from an old satellite station. The explosion rocked the battlefield. This time, Harmony's shield dropped. Just for an instant. Just enough. Lisa, running on instinct and fury, launched the drone controller at the machine's exposed vent. The device embedded with a sharp clunk, and Jake followed it with a frag round. The double impact sent Harmony reeling, systems blaring. As it fell, writhing and short-circuiting, Jake approached with measured steps. He raised his boot and stomped the controller deeper into the vent. The death engine seized. One last screech of fury, and it was still. Silence followed. Smoke curled upward. Jake's chest heaved. "Did we win?" Lisa asked, kneeling beside the wreck. Jake shrugged. "We made a mess. That's usually the first step." They sat beside the broken machine, letting adrenaline ebb. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of ozone and scorched earth. Jake tore off his helmet, hair plastered with sweat, face pale beneath a layer of soot. Lisa looked over at him. "You said something earlier, about rule number 1. He stared into the machine's remains. "Yeah. You never finished explaining it." Jake tilted his head, a crooked grin forming. "It's not just about not quitting. Rule number 1 is, never assume we're out of tricks. Never count us out because we look beat. Because when you think it's over, that's usually when we get started." Lisa leaned back, the tiniest laugh escaping. "You're all lunatics." Jake's expression sobered. "No, just human." Above them, one of the drones, damaged, flickering, limped back into orbit, broadcasting fragments of footage across Imperial channels. It carried no commentary, just visual data. A Reaper rising from ash, defeating their finest machine with trash, teamwork, and sheer bull-headed spite. The feed hit the Empire's war desk within the hour. Commander Zarnax reviewed it in silence. He watched as the machine fell, frame by frame. Saw the human step into view. Saw the words, "You forgot rule number 1, spray-painted in red on a slab behind him. Probably by the woman. Click hovered near, awaiting orders. Zarnax said nothing for a long time. Finally he turned. "Send word to the suppression fleets. Recalibrate our psychological profiles. And locate any remaining Reaper units." Click blinked. Twice. "You said they were extinct, Commander." Zarnax's 6 eyes narrowed. "So were humans. And yet, here they are. Laughing. Building bombs from garbage. Turning death into theater." Click hesitated. "Do you wish to classify the footage as false propaganda?" Zarnax shook his head. "No. Let the galaxy see it. Let them remember what they thought was gone. Let them remember the Reapers." In the quiet beneath a broken sky, Jake stared at the smoldering crater where Harmony 9 had stood. He lit a match on his armor's thigh plate and sparked a bent cigarette. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Where'd you get that?" "Old supply cache," he muttered, puffing smoke. "Had Twinkies. 2. You want one?" She blinked. "They're still edible?" He grinned. "They're immortal, like cockroaches, or Americans." Somewhere behind them a signal blinked to life on Lisa's console. Another transmission. Another Reaper. Still alive. Jake crushed the cigarette beneath his boot and picked up his rifle. "Looks like we're not done yet." Jake didn't talk much during orbital jumps. It wasn't nerves or superstition. It was a habit, carved into his bones during the old wars, back when the sky used to burn red and ships didn't return home. You sat quiet, checked your gear, made peace with the fact that someone out there had marked your expiration date in ink you'd never see coming. Lisa, on the other hand, hummed the Knight Rider theme and played solitaire on a salvaged datapad, making it a point to narrate her losing streak like it was ESPN. "They should really add explosions to this game," she muttered, flinging a virtual card onto the pile. Or at least an option to throw the deck at someone when it cheats. Jake looked over. It's solitaire. It can't cheat. Lisa squinted. You say that, but I'm pretty sure this digital jack just flipped me off. Their pod jolted as it broke through the stratosphere of Arden Nan, a planet that had once been a peaceful trade hub before the Empire turned it into a training ground for indoctrinated shock troops. Now, it was a dead zone. Blackened forests, melted cities, and orbital debris fields that screamed collateral damage. Remind me again why we're landing here? Lisa asked as she tightened her harness. Jake loaded a fresh cartridge into his sidearm. The signal originated from one of the old Reaper bunkers, pre-fall encryption, buried deep in the northern wastes. Lisa raised a brow. You're saying another Reaper survived all this time? I'm saying something is still down there broadcasting on dead channels only Reapers used. Could be a trap. Jake gave her a look. It's always a trap. That's how we know we're headed the right way. The pod slammed into the planet's surface with enough force to throw their stomachs into orbit. Jake kicked the hatch open before the dust settled. He stepped out, scanning the horizon with the ease of someone who had stopped trusting silence long ago. The landscape resembled a graveyard for titans. Wrecked dropships protruded like rusted bones from ashen soil. The air was thick with residual radiation, filtered only slightly by their suits. Looks like a party, Lisa muttered, slinging her rifle. If this is a party, Jake replied, someone already blew out the candles and shot the DJ. They followed the signal, winding through shattered complexes and collapsed towers. Every now and then, they passed Imperial insignias half-melted into stone, or the outlines of soldiers turned to shadow by plasma fire. The Reaper network had gone dark a decade ago after the last formal strike team was dismantled, in what the Empire proudly called the Operation Final Silence. And yet the signal pulsed steadily. 3 beeps, then a pause. Reaper protocol for emergency recall. Lisa wasn't sure what was more unnerving, the fact it was still active, or the fact Jake kept walking toward it like a man heading for church. They reached a collapsed monolith, half buried in volcanic ash. Beneath it was a reinforced hatch etched with an old Earth sigil, a skeletal hand clutching a lightning bolt. Jake crouched and tapped in an access code without hesitation. The hatch hissed open with a sound like an exhale. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered, powered by a solar grid long thought dead. The walls were lined with steel lockers and memory coils, each one tagged with unit numbers. The central console blinked erratically, displaying a grainy hologram of a woman in combat, armor, weathered, scarred, and unmistakably human. She spoke a single line on loop. Protocol R1 initiated. Reaper failsafe active. Jake stepped forward and placed his hand on the biometric pad. The console chirped, scanning. Then the hologram changed. A list of Reaper call signs appeared. All of them marked KIA, except one. Call sign, Ghost Hand. Lisa frowned. That's not yours? Jake shook his head slowly. No, that's Keller. Who the hell is Keller? Jake didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a sealed locker from the wall and cracked it open. Inside was a long coat made of ballistic mesh, faded dog tags, and an old Earthside revolver. Jake lifted the tags. Reaper designation Ghost Hand. Cole Keller. He wasn't just a Reaper. He was the Reaper. Lisa watched the way Jake's expression hardened, the way his voice dropped slightly like he was reading the obituary of someone still breathing. He was my CO during the Athens collapse. Stayed behind when we evacuated. Everyone thought he burned with the outpost. But if he's alive... Lisa stepped back as a second signal pinged the console, this time from deeper underground. Then he's sending us an invitation, she said. Or a warning. Jake nodded. Or both. They descended into the lower levels. Each hallway was lined with automated defense systems, all of which powered down as Jake approached. Recognition codes, buried deep in the recesses of legacy networks, still treated him like he belonged. Finally, they reached a chamber unlike the others. Here, the walls pulsed with active circuits. At the center stood a command chair, occupied. The figure inside was barely alive. Tubes ran into his spine, metal plates replaced half his face, and the smell of recycled blood filled the room. But his eyes opened as Jake stepped forward. "Keller," Jake said quietly. The man's voice was more machine than human. "Took you long enough." Lisa instinctively raised her weapon, but Jake lowered it with a look. Keller made no move to attack. In fact, he seemed barely capable of movement. "What the hell happened to you?" Jake asked. Keller coughed, the sound mechanical and hollow. "Empire found me during retreat. Didn't kill me, didn't want a martyr. They dissected me, reprogrammed parts. Thought they could make me a weapon for their black guard." Lisa stepped closer. "And?" Keller smiled faintly. "Didn't work. I remembered rule number 1. Jake's jaw tightened. "Never count us out." Keller's eyes flickered. "But I am out, Jake. I'm dying. This body's a time bomb. I've been stalling them with false signals, scrambling my location. But it won't hold. They know where I am now. They're coming. And they won't stop until they erase what's left of us." Jake stared at him. "Then we give them something worth remembering." Keller's laugh was faint. "You always were the dramatic one." The console lit up again. Imperial dreadnoughts entering the atmosphere. Multiple troop carriers, all descending on their location. Lisa looked at Jake. "How many?" "Too many," Jake muttered. "Can we escape?" "No, but we can make sure they regret ever landing." Keller reached to his console and transferred something into Jake's gauntlet. A data packet, encoded, pulsing with old Reaper code. "What is this?" Jake asked. "Our last trick," Keller replied. "A virus, built from inside the Empire's own neural net. You get that into one of their command ships, and you'll light a fire they can't contain." Lisa narrowed her eyes. "You're planning on dying here." Keller met her gaze. "I've been dying for 10 years. Today, I choose what I die for." Jake stepped back and saluted, fist over heart. "You always did like exits with flair." Keller smiled again. "Leave the door open behind you. I'd hate to haunt a locked hallway." As Jake and Lisa ran back through the collapsing complex, sirens echoed in the distance. Dropships were incoming. A full battalion. Maybe more. But they had the virus now. They had a plan. And behind them, far below the earth, a dying Reaper activated. Every explosive in the bunker with a single word. Showtime. Jake had always known that plans rarely survived first contact with Imperial firepower. But even he hadn't expected the dreadnoughts to show up early. The sky lit up in amber as ships pierced the cloud layers, spitting thunder and metal from orbit. Lisa cursed as debris rained down, narrowly missing their retreat shuttle. "You ever consider we might be cursed?" she shouted over the roar. Jake didn't look back. "Cursed implies bad luck. This is just bad company." They sprinted across the crater field, boots crunching over carbonized remains of ancient battles. The shuttle they'd prepped earlier was already smoldering, half melted under a fresh Imperial strafing run. Smoke twisted skyward like a funeral banner. Jake stopped just short of the wreckage and grimaced. "Options?" Lisa asked, hands already checking her rifle's cooling vents. Jake looked toward the hills. "Secondary site. Old Reaper drone cache Keller mentioned. Might still be intact. If not, we improvise." "Got it." She slapped his shoulder. "You ever think maybe our gravestones will just read, 'Improvised until it killed them'?" Jake started running again. "You don't get a gravestone if there's nothing left to bury." By the time they reached the cache site, Imperial squads had already begun fanning out across the valley. Through cracked lenses and dusty visors, humans and machines scanned for movement like bloodhounds in a graveyard. Jake activated his stealth. Shroud, motioning for Lisa to do the same. They moved through tall, dead brush like ghosts, evading heat signatures and avoiding aerial drones. The cache was nestled beneath a fallen satellite relay, half covered in dirt and decay. Inside, they found a rusted Reaper AI drone, still intact, still waiting. Jake jacked into its interface and uploaded Keller's virus. The drone stuttered, then rebooted, lights flickering green. Protocol Ghost Hand initiated, it intoned. Target acquisition priority, Imperial Dreadnought Command Network. Jake nodded. Good, now fly, you beautiful relic of war. The drone ascended like a bat from hell, weaving through anti-air volleys with pre-fall precision. Lisa shielded her eyes, watching it vanish into the clouds. You think it'll make it? Jake didn't blink. It has to. Meanwhile, the Empire's vanguard reached the outer rim of the valley. Drop pods hit the ground with bone-shaking impact. Out poured troops clad in synthetic armor, wielding railguns that made human weapons look like museum pieces. But they weren't facing just humans anymore. They were facing Reapers with nothing left to lose. Jake rigged the cache with charges, while Lisa synchronized the detonator to her pulse band. Every step the enemy took closer would bring them closer to sudden explosive regret. Across the comms, scattered resistance units picked up Keller's signal. Fighters who had gone underground, mercenaries who'd walked away from impossible odds, smugglers who remembered the Reapers not as soldiers but as legends. And like rusted swords pulled from beneath the ashes, they rallied. Signals bouncing, Lisa said, watching a dozen pings flicker across her display. Looks like someone lit the beacons. Jake cracked a smile. Then we give 'em something to march for. It started small. A skirmish near the western ridge. Imperial walkers caught in a minefield laid decades earlier and reactivated via Keller's code. Then a Reaper ghost squad emerged from the eastern bluff, camouflaged in scavenged armor, weapons humming with jury-rigged energy cells. They hit fast and vanished faster. Confused reports littered the Imperial channels. Sightings of soldiers long declared dead, formations thought obsolete. The Empire had walked into a tomb and stirred its angry bones. Jake led Lisa into the high rocks, guiding her through terrain he'd memorized in another lifetime. They emerged above the valley just as the Reaper drone punched through the dreadnoughts, shielding. It slammed into the command deck, detonating its payload and delivering Keller's virus into the Empire's neural grid. Everything stopped. Ships halted in mid-flight. Drones spun erratically and crashed. Targeting systems reversed. Command relays bled static. The Empire's finest tech convulsed like a marionette with its strings cut. For a full 60 seconds, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was blind, deaf, and stupid. Jake didn't waste a second. All units, now! He shouted into the comm. From the cliffs, resistance fighters surged. From bunkers, old war. Machines booted up with Keller's override codes. Reclaimed mechs lumbered into the fray, firing shoulder-mounted cannons with all the finesse of a wrecking ball. Imperial squads tried to regroup, but the virus fractured their link-ups. Their HUDs fed them ghost data. Enemy positions scrambled, targeting systems misfiring into their own ranks. Lisa ducked under a rail shot, rolled behind cover, and fired a pulse round straight into an officer's power cell. The explosion lit. Up the slope. You know, she yelled over the chaos, for a dying race, we're putting on one hell of a show. Jake nailed an aerial drone mid-dive, the machine spiraling into a walker that exploded in spectacular irony. That's because humans only die when the plot's boring. The battle lasted hours, though time warped in the smoke and adrenaline. The tide turned not because the Resistance had better weapons, but because they had better madness. A kid from New Chicago screamed, "Cowabunga!" before launching himself from a ridge with a rocket pack and 2 plasma grenades taped to his chest. An old woman named Sergeant Roxy clubbed an Imperial brute to death with a pipe labeled diplomacy. And somewhere, someone blasted Eye of the Tiger from a hijacked PA system while Reaper remnants cleared trenches. Jake and Lisa pushed toward the heart of the Imperial landing zone. The last dreadnought had fallen into low orbit, its systems barely holding against the viral corruption. Jake knew they had one shot to end it. He had Keller's final directive still cached in his gauntlet, a backdoor into the dreadnought's reactor core. But the path was suicide. A single opening, one chance to infiltrate before the systems rebooted and the Empire adapted. Lisa looked at him. "You going alone?" He met her eyes. "You know I have to." "Then I'm going too." Jake shook his head. "Lisa? Don't argue with me while death metal's playing in the background," she snapped. "It ruins the aesthetic." They sprinted toward the downed transport, hijacked it mid-flight from a distracted pilot, and launched skyward under heavy fire. The dreadnought loomed like a dead god. Its hull burned, its lights flickered, and its guns spat erratically into empty space. As they docked, the ship's AI, a corrupted Imperial voice now fused with fragments of Keller's virus, spoke in glitching tones. "Unauthorized presence. Reaper echo detected. Welcome home." Inside, the corridors twisted with broken light. Corpses of Imperial crew littered the floors, killed not by violence, but by the ship turning on them in a moment of perfect betrayal. Jake uploaded the payload into the core, bypassing security with ease Keller had ensured. Lisa stood watch, rifle aimed at the sealed entrance. "You think this ends it?" she asked. Jake keyed in the final sequence. "No, but it starts something. They can't stop." Alarms blared. The ship began its self-destruct cascade, accelerated by Keller's failsafe. Jake turned only to find Lisa already pulling him back toward the hangar. "We're not dying in here, cowboy," she snapped. "I still owe you a drink?" They launched just as the dreadnought exploded, the blast fracturing clouds and knocking out half the orbital grid. From the ground, resistance fighters roared. The last dreadnought's fall was visible from neighboring systems. In bars and bunkers and war rooms across the galaxy, the footage went viral in seconds. The Reapers were back. Not as a fleet, not as an army, but as a reminder you don't bury ghosts by declaring them dead. Weeks later, Jake stood on a broken balcony overlooking a liberated zone on Arden 9. Resistance banners flew from shattered towers. Families reclaimed homes. Soldiers told stories, each more exaggerated than the last. Kids spray-painted Reaper emblems on walls. And every night, Keller's voice repeated from pirate transmissions across the galaxy. Rule number 1. Never count humans out. Lisa joined him, holding 2 glasses of something that vaguely resembled whiskey. She handed one over. "Think we did enough damage for one lifetime?" she asked. Jake clinked his glass with hers. "We'll find out, or we'll improvise." Behind them, the stars burned bright, and in the silence between transmissions, the Empire listened, wounded, watching, and for the first time in centuries, afraid.